Mirabelle's phone buzzed 3 times in less than 10 seconds. Then a fourth. Then a fifth. She glanced down, expecting another update from the environmental survey team she had been working with all week. Instead, every notification came from Harold, the retired widower who lived 2 houses away from her beach house. Harold * Mirabelle, I think you need to see this. The first photo loaded. Her stomach dropped. Cars lined both sides of the quiet coastal road. Bright balloons were tied to her front porch. Smoke drifted from a barbecue grill sitting on her * deck. The second photo hit even harder. A banner stretched across the railing. Welcome to the family beach house. Mirabelle whispered, What? The third image showed strangers carrying coolers through her front door as if they owned the place. Then came the fourth. Her parents stood in the middle of her living room laughing. Her older sister, Denise, smiled while pointing toward the ocean, giving what looked like a tour of the house Mirabelle had spent 7 years saving to buy. Mirabelle didn't blink. She immediately pressed her mother's number. The call connected on the second ring. Mom, why are you in my house? Oh, sweetheart, her mother answered casually, with music blaring in the background. It's only family. Stop being so selfish. Before Mirabelle could respond, another voice grabbed the phone. Denise laughed. You hardly use the place anyway. The line went dead. Mirabelle lowered the phone without saying another word. Something was very, very wrong. 3 years earlier, buying that beach house had felt impossible. While her coworkers upgraded cars and took expensive vacations, Mirabelle quietly worked overtime, skipped holidays, and deposited every extra dollar into a savings account that nobody knew existed. Her family had teased her constantly. Live a little. You can't take money with you. You're so cheap. She smiled through every joke because she never wanted to explain that she wasn't being cheap. She was building the only dream she'd ever allowed herself. When she finally closed on the small oceanfront house, she celebrated with only 2 people, her husband, Ethan, and Harold, the elderly neighbor who had welcomed them with homemade pie on moving day. Everyone else found out weeks later. Instead of congratulating her, Denise asked the first question. So, when can all of us use it? Mirabelle had laughed awkwardly. I just bought it. Their mother quickly stepped in. Family shares, honey. Mirabelle never answered. Over the following months, she noticed little comments that made her uncomfortable. We should spend Thanksgiving there. It would be perfect for reunions. You don't need all that space. Every conversation ended the same way. Mirabelle changed the subject instead of arguing. Keeping the peace had always been easier than saying no. The only compromise she agreed to was leaving a spare key with her parents after her mother insisted. What if there's an emergency while you're away? Mirabelle believed her. Now, staring at Harold's photos, she realized exactly what that emergency had become. Another message arrived. This time it wasn't a photo. It was a short video. Children raced through the hallway she'd painted herself. Someone had opened the door to her bedroom. Guests carried trays of food into her kitchen, while Denise stood near the fireplace laughing with relatives. No one looked like a visitor. They looked completely at home. Mirabelle's phone vibrated again. Harold had sent one final message. I'm sorry, I thought you knew they were coming. She took a slow breath. Instead of calling her family back, instead of arguing, instead of warning anyone, she selected every photo and every video Harold had sent. Then she forwarded them to Ethan. For almost 20 minutes, there was only silence. Finally, his reply appeared. Just one sentence. Don't call them again. I'm already on my way. Mirabelle stared at Ethan's message until the screen dimmed. He hadn't asked questions. He hadn't told her to calm down. And he hadn't said he would talk things over. He simply said he was already on his way. For the first time since Harold's messages arrived, Mirabelle stopped reaching for her phone. If Ethan wanted her to stay silent, there had to be a reason. She trusted him. That trust came from years of watching him stay calm when everyone else reacted emotionally. Still, waiting felt unbearable. Another notification from Harold appeared. They're still bringing things inside. A new photo loaded. The living room no longer looked like the home Mirabelle had carefully furnished. The coffee table had been pushed against the wall to make room for folding chairs. Decorative pillows she had picked out after weeks of searching were piled carelessly in a corner. Someone had hung bright streamers across the windows that framed the ocean view she loved waking up to. Harold sent another picture only seconds later. This one hurt even more. The framed photographs Mirabelle kept on the mantel, pictures from hiking trips with Ethan, their wedding by the shoreline, and one of her late grandmothers smiling on that very porch, had all been removed. They were stacked face down on the dining table. In their place sat trays of food and paper plates. Mirabelle quietly covered her mouth. They moved Grandma's picture. She wasn't angry because they had decorated. She was angry because they acted as though nothing inside the house mattered. As though the memories belonged to them, too. The images pulled her back to dozens of family gatherings over the years. Denise always had a way of making Mirabelle's achievements sound insignificant. When Mirabelle earned a promotion, Denise shrugged. She's lucky her boss likes her. When Mirabelle paid off her student loans years early, Denise joked during dinner. Imagine working that hard just to avoid having fun. Everyone laughed. Their parents laughed the loudest. Yet Denise constantly asked to borrow money. It started with small amounts. Then it became help with rent. Then overdue credit card bills. Every time Mirabelle quietly helped, her parents praised Denise for doing her best, while reminding Mirabelle that family should always support one another. Whenever Mirabelle hesitated, the conversation ended exactly the same. You've always been the responsible one. Responsibility slowly became expectation. Expectation became entitlement. Looking back now, Mirabelle realized the beach house hadn't changed their attitude. It had simply given them something bigger to feel entitled to. Her phone buzzed again. Another picture from Harold. This time, several relatives were carrying luggage upstairs. Luggage. Not overnight bags. Full-sized suitcases. Mirabelle frowned. They're planning to stay. A moment later, another image arrived. Workers in matching shirts stood outside the front entrance with toolboxes. One of them knelt beside the doorframe. Another held a brand new lock set in his hand. Harold's caption beneath the photo was only 6 words long. They're replacing your front door lock. Mirabelle's heart skipped. This wasn't a weekend visit anymore. It was something far more deliberate. The new lock was installed before Mirabelle could even decide whether to call anyone else. Harold sent a short video from across the street. One worker tested the handle twice, handed Denise a new set of keys, and drove away. Denise smiled, slipped the keys into her purse, and walked back inside as though she had just finished improving her own home. Mirabelle stared at the screen in disbelief. They actually changed my locks. Before she could process it, another notification appeared. This one wasn't from Harold. It was from social media. Denise had started a live video. Mirabelle hesitated for a second before opening it. The camera swept across the backyard where relatives laughed around picnic tables. Children chased each other across the lawn. Someone had connected speakers, filling the property with loud music. Denise turned the camera toward herself. So happy everyone could make it. We've been talking about doing this forever. Comments flooded the screen. Asterisk, congratulations. Your parents finally bought a beach house. It's beautiful. Can't wait to visit. Mirabelle watched every message. Not once did Denise correct anyone. Instead, she smiled and answered, "Thank you, we love it here." The lie spread with every passing second. Harold's next message arrived almost immediately. She just introduced herself to another couple walking their dog. A photo followed. Denise stood beside two neighbors, pointing toward the house. Harold had been close enough to hear the conversation. His caption read, "She told them she's one of the owners, said you hardly come here anymore." Mirabel clenched her jaw. The beach community was small. Neighbors knew each other. Reputations mattered. Denise wasn't just borrowing the house. She was rewriting its story. Then Harold surprised her again. This time, he had recorded part of an exchange from his own front porch. His voice remained quiet behind the camera. "Afternoon, Denise. Oh, hello. I don't remember seeing you here much before." Denise laughed confidently. "That's because my sister barely uses the place. It's really our property now." Harold paused. "I thought Mirabel bought it herself." Denise waved dismissively. "Oh, paperwork doesn't tell the whole story." She walked away before Harold could ask another question. The recording ended. Mirabel exhaled slowly. Harold wasn't confronting them. He was documenting them. Every conversation. Every claim. Every lie. Just then, another alert appeared on Mirabel's phone. This one came directly from her home security app. Camera offline living room. A second later, camera offline hallway. Then, camera offline kitchen. One after another, the indoor cameras disappeared from the system. Mirabel immediately opened the monitoring app. Every interior feed had gone black. Someone inside the house wasn't simply ignoring the cameras. They were unplugging them. They're destroying the evidence. The realization hit instantly. Changing locks. Claiming ownership. Misleading neighbors. Disconnecting cameras. None of this looked accidental anymore. Her phone rang. "Ethan." She answered immediately. "What's happening?" His voice stayed calm. "I've seen everything." "Are you close?" "Close enough." "Should I call them, tell them to leave?" There was a brief pause. Then Ethan spoke with complete certainty. "No." Mirabel frowned. "No. Don't warn them." She waited. His next sentence made her glance back at every photo Harold had sent. "Let them keep doing exactly what they're doing." He ended the call. Mirabel barely had time to lower her phone before Harold sent another stream of updates. The party wasn't winding down. It was growing. Cars now filled every available space along the narrow beach road. Late arrivals parked on the edge of the protected sand dunes despite the clearly posted conservation signs. Harold texted first. "It's getting out of hand." Then came another photo. Someone had dragged heavy patio furniture across the wooden deck instead of lifting it. Long, fresh scratches cut across the boards Mirabel and Ethan had refinished by hand the previous summer. A few minutes later, another picture arrived. One of the outdoor lounge chairs lay on its side with a broken armrest. A portable grill had been rolled across the deck, leaving black scorch marks near the railing. Mirabel closed her eyes for a moment. Every new image represented years of careful work being undone in a single afternoon. Her phone chimed again. This time it wasn't Harold. It was an automatic notification from the utility account she shared with Ethan. Water usage unusually high. She opened the dashboard. The consumption had nearly tripled compared to a normal weekend. Before she could finish reading it, another notification appeared. Electricity usage significantly above expected levels. The air conditioning, outdoor lighting, kitchen appliances, and entertainment system were all running continuously. The house was functioning as though dozens of people had moved in. Harold followed with another message. Police were just called about the music. Mirabel looked at the attached photo. Several nearby homeowners stood outside talking with one another. A patrol car had slowed near the entrance to the neighborhood before continuing toward another street after the volume was lowered. The complaints weren't coming from strangers. They were coming from neighbors who had always respected the quiet community. Another video appeared. Harold had stayed inside his screened porch, careful not to draw attention. The camera pointed toward Denise, who stood near the barbecue laughing with newly arrived guests. One guest looked around the property and asked, "So when did you finally buy this place?" Denise lifted her drink with a grin. "We finally got rid of all the paperwork." She laughed. "It's ours now." The people around her cheered. Mirabel immediately replayed the clip. There was no misunderstanding. No joke. No sarcasm. Denise wanted people to believe the house belonged to her family. Everything suddenly connected. The spare emergency key. The new locks. The disconnected security cameras. The false claims to neighbors. The online posts calling it the family's beach house. The damaged property. This wasn't a family gathering that had gotten out of hand. They had behaved as though ownership had already changed. Harold sent one last update. "You should see this." The photo showed two police vehicles parked quietly near the entrance to the street. They weren't using flashing lights. They simply waited. Seconds later, another image arrived. A black SUV turned onto the road and stopped directly in front of Mirabel's beach house. The driver's door opened. Ethan stepped out wearing the same clothes he'd left home in earlier that morning. But he wasn't alone. A professionally dressed man carrying a leather briefcase climbed out of the passenger side. Behind them, two private security officers exited another vehicle. Harold's final message appeared beneath the photo. "They're walking to the front door now." Inside the house, music continued to play. Guests gathered around the living room. Denise stood near the fireplace, smiling as she raised a glass to begin a toast. She opened her mouth to speak. At that exact moment, the front door swung open. The music faded as conversations stopped one by one. Every head in the living room turned toward the front entrance. Denise lowered her glass, her smile disappearing the moment she recognized Ethan. "Oh," she said with an uneasy laugh, "you made it." No one answered. Ethan stepped inside without raising his voice. Behind him walked a middle-aged attorney carrying a leather briefcase, followed by two private security officers. Two uniformed police officers remained just outside the doorway, visible through the open entrance. The room grew completely silent. Mirabel's father frowned. "What is all this?" Ethan calmly closed the front door behind him. What should have happened before anyone entered this house? Denise folded her arms. "Don't be dramatic. We're family." "No," Ethan replied evenly. "You're unauthorized occupants." Several relatives exchanged confused looks. One cousin whispered, "Wait, what?" The attorney placed his briefcase on the dining table and removed several neatly organized folders. He spoke with practiced professionalism. "My name is Richard Hale. I represent the owners of this property." Denise interrupted. "We know who owns it." The attorney looked directly at her. "Apparently, you don't." He opened the first folder. "This property is legally owned by Mirabel Carter." He slid another document across the table. "Several weeks ago, ownership was transferred into a properly recorded family trust for estate planning purposes. Mrs. Carter remains the sole beneficiary and authorized resident under the trust agreement." He paused just long enough for everyone to absorb the words. "No one else has any right to occupy this property without her express permission." The room fell even quieter. Mirabel's mother finally spoke. "We had a key." The attorney nodded. "Having a key does not grant ownership or permission." Ethan reached into another folder and laid several printed photographs across the table. Harold's photographs. Every stage of the gathering had been documented. Cars arriving, guests entering, furniture being moved, workers replacing the locks. Then came screenshots from Denise's social media accounts. The attorney placed them beside the photographs. Each image showed the same thing. Denise smiling proudly, while captions referred to the beach house as *our families place ***. Another page contained comments congratulating her family on buying the property. Next to each screenshot were timestamps. The attorney looked around the room. These public statements establish repeated claims of ownership. Denise's confidence began to crack. I didn't mean. You also represented yourself as one of the owners to neighboring residents, the attorney continued. Harold quietly stepped through the open doorway after one of the officers invited him inside. He carried a small envelope. I was asked to bring these. Inside were printed photographs showing the workers installing the new lock. Each picture included the time and date, automatically stamped by Harold's camera. The attorney accepted them with a nod. Thank you. Harold glanced at Mirabelle's parents. I asked if everything was authorized. No one answered him. I was told the property belonged to all of you now. Denise looked away. The attorney continued. Interior security cameras were disconnected. He held up another document. The monitoring system recorded exactly when each camera went offline. Another page. Utility records show abnormal occupancy beginning shortly after entry. Another. Damage to outdoor furniture, decking, and security hardware has already been photographed for the insurance claim. Every document built upon the last. No accusations. No shouting. Just facts. Mirabelle's father finally looked at Ethan. What do you expect us to do? Ethan answered without hesitation. Leave. The police officers stepped inside. One addressed the guests respectfully. Everyone who is not authorized to be here needs to gather your belongings and exit the property. There was no resistance. The atmosphere had completely changed. Only minutes earlier, people had been laughing and celebrating. Now relatives quietly collected purses, jackets, coolers, and children's toys. Several guests stopped beside Ethan. We're sorry, one aunt said softly. We thought your parents owned the house. Another cousin shook his head. If we'd known the truth, we never would have come. One by one, embarrassed relatives walked out the front door. Denise remained standing in the living room. This is ridiculous, she muttered. Her voice no longer carried confidence. Only frustration. The attorney closed his folder. The replacement of the locks, damage to the property, removal of security equipment, and unauthorized occupancy will all be included in the civil claim. Mirabelle's mother's eyes widened. Civil claim. The owners will also seek reimbursement for repairs and associated costs. No one argued. There wasn't anything left to argue about. The evidence spoke for itself. By sunset, the house was quiet again. The broken chair remained on the deck. The scratches across the wood still caught the light. But the people responsible were gone. A week later, contractors repaired the damaged lock, restored the security system, and documented every repair for the insurance file. Denise and Mirabelle's parents ultimately paid for the damage after receiving formal legal demands supported by the overwhelming evidence collected that day. Word spread quickly through the neighborhood. Not because Mirabelle told anyone. Because the same neighbors who had watched strangers take over the house also watched them leave under police supervision. The story corrected itself. Harold became more than just a neighbor. He became a trusted friend. Mirabelle and Ethan thanked him in person over coffee on the rebuilt deck a few weeks later. I almost didn't send those pictures, Harold admitted. I'm glad you did. Mirabelle replied with a smile. It changed everything. She also changed the locks, updated every emergency contact, and removed every spare key that wasn't absolutely necessary. For the first time in years, she stopped confusing forgiveness with unlimited access. Contact with her parents and Denise became limited. Not out of revenge. Out of peace. Months later, Mirabelle and Ethan returned to the beach house for a quiet weekend. No crowds. No arguments. Just the sound of waves rolling onto the shore as they watched the sunset from the porch they had worked so hard to build. Mirabelle slipped her hand into Ethan's. I thought losing the house was what scared me the most. He looked at her. What was it really? She smiled softly at the ocean, realizing I didn't have to keep sacrificing my happiness just because they're family. The waves continued breaking against the shore as the last light disappeared beyond the horizon. The beach house had always been hers. Now so was her peace.